operators.
All right, guys.
First assistant,
Welcome everyone. We're gonna get started here. My name is Juan Moss. I'm one of the members of the Spokane Film Project and part of the education committee that is organizing this event today. This is second of our 4 for the year that we're doing. We did one earlier about writing, and this one's on union and industry standards. And we have a wonderful panel that will share their knowledge with you, as well as a great host, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves, and we'll get started.
Good morning. My name is Tim Ormsby. I'm the president of the Spokane Regional Labor Council. I come out of the Operative Plasters and Cement Masons Union, so concrete.
Mark Dahlstrom, last 5 years been the production supervisor UPM on Z Nation, and I'm a member of the Directors Guild of America as a first assistant director.
Hi there, I'm Peter Green. I'm a cinematographer with Local 600, the International Cinematographers Guild.
I'm Rebecca Cook. I'm the Vice President of IATSE Local 488, which is the Pacific Northwest stagehands film crews for the most part. And I also work as an accountant and a costumer through 488.
My name is Travis Berry, and I am an editor through IATSE Local 700, the Editors Union.
My name is Chris Compte, and unlike the rest of these folks here, I am not actually a member of SAG-AFTRA. I'm a staff on SAG-AFTRA. I do contracts administration out of the Seattle local office.
Okay.
You didn't get a mic?
Oh,
Wired.
I can see who's the outlier here. So just in trying to get a handle around union membership, involvement, contract management and implementation, people get asked a lot of questions on the street, and it seems a lot of people aren't interested or don't know a lot about it because we don't do labor history in school like they did back in the day when I was there, and so it's kind of an unknown, but it is enticing. People do feel the drag on their ability to make a living. So in the interest of kind of explaining from your perspective how this happens, and I would just ask the question, and for any of you that would like to weigh in, and we can do a little interactive thing to tease out a little information. Can you explain the process of becoming a union member in your experience and the things that you might tell individuals that approached you and asked you about that?
I mean, I can speak for 600, and most of IATSE, I think, is similar. For us, it's a 30-day working in trade on a union project that gets you the chance to become a member. There are exceptions. You can also do 100 days of mixed or non-union, and you can submit an application. And occasionally, we have open enrollment. I don't know, do you guys ever do open enrollment?
A little
sometimes?
different.
Okay.
Yeah, and ours is, because most of the editors are based out of LA, the LA is a little stricter and harder to get into, but up here in Spokane, because there aren't a lot of editors, just being an editor allows you the opportunity to get in. If you do get a gig as an editor on a union show, they allow you to get in without having to go through rosters or wait periods or things like that.
And for 488, because we're based up here, so 700 and 600 are all, they cover all of the editors. And
We're
all
national.
They're national. And we're just District 1, so we're just local. For us, it's 30 days union or non-union work. You have to prove you've been paid for 30 days in one position in the craft, and then prove you've been a resident for 18 months. And then you submit a resume, and the membership chair, who also is the vice president, vets you, and if you get in, you're in.
Get to know Rebecca.
I mean, I feel like I should throw it out there.
and I can speak both from the union side and management side, because much of what I do is more on the management side, and you know, most of the unions, in terms of our life here in Spokane, are very, very open to, hey, I've gone down the roster, I've called everybody, nobody from Seattle will come over, there's nobody in Spokane that'll work, I need to go off roster and hire somebody. And that's, particularly for 488, that's probably the easiest way to get in some respects, is that If there just isn't a 48 member that wants to or is available, you can go off roster and hire somebody.
Yeah, if you work 30 days on a union project, you become a must join.
Then,
So you
yeah.
can't work another day on a union project until you join the union.
And we had that happen a fair amount on Z Nation, where
Yeah.
we would hire somebody that was not on the roster. They'd work their 30 days, and we'd get a notification that, hey, if you want to continue to work, you have to join.
Yeah, we also have a referral list. So if you're interested in becoming a union member, but you don't have your days and you want to try and get them, you just send a letter to one of our business agents with a resume and say, hey, can I be on your referral list? Here's a resume that says, look, I know what I'm doing. And then when someone has to go off roster, we can offer them some other options.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
SAG-AFTRA is a little bit different in that most of the craft unions, they talk about rosters, lists of people who are available to work specific jobs. Because so much of our work for on the acting side tends to be like a job that literally lasts only one day. So our our process is a little bit different in that for most of our contracts, there are a few exceptions on the very, very, very sort of low budget end. But for most cases, if you work one day as a principal performer, somebody with lines, or somebody with a non-speaking role that's fairly substantial, just more than background, or 3 days of background. They don't have to be like 3 days in a row or 3 days on the same project. But if you meet either of those two qualifications, then you become eligible for membership, because it may be in some cases years before you work another job after you become eligible for membership. We've set up a process where once you do your second job under a contract as a principal, or you've met your 3 days of background work, then the 30-day clock starts, like what they've been talking about. Under federal labor law, it's called the Taft-Hartley window. If you work a 9-to-5 job in a union shop where you go there every day, once you start that job, you have 30 days after that time to tender dues and fees. So we just simply say, once you do your second job, that 30-day window opens. You can work as many jobs under contract within that 30 days as you can get. After that 30-day window closes, then the next job after that you would be in a must-pay situation and would have to tender dues and fees in order to be work cleared for that particular job.
It's fascinating, being at the Labor Council, all the variety, and just within the same industry, the standards are a little different than you start going into the construction union side of things. Where I come from, it's an entirely different program. So it really is about people identifying their interest and their passion, and then figuring out, how can they get involved and finding someone with your knowledge. So when you were talking about the eligibility stuff, do any of the crafts within the film industry, like someone comes to you off roster, or they're kind of an unknown quantity and they have a resume, what is the thing that puts them in a position to be, this would be a good hire, this would be someone that would be good to bring on? In the construction unions, we have multiple multi-year apprenticeship programs where you kind of develop that talent within. How do you decide, when you come across an individual that's interested, how do you decide what's a good fit, and how do you evaluate their credentials?
Well, I'll tell you, for 600, we have been trying to put together an apprenticeship program for years. It seems to be more difficult than it sounds, but because we don't have that yet, what I look for and what we kind of look for is, we look for an individual who has passion in the industry and has taken some initiative to do some of the projects on their own. And
That'd be like school, or?
Yeah, it could be school, a degree, but it also could be, just small projects. If they are interested enough, a lot of people will make their own little short movies, and once you see that kind of passion, you tend to want to bring them in and get them involved.
And I think that's the way it also works for the editors as well. It's something that's very easy, especially for the ones that went to school, because they do projects in school, so they have something to show. But even the people who don't go to school, they have friends and things that they do short movies with and that they edit. And a lot of that you can just bring up and you can show somebody looking, and you can see, like he said, you could see the passion, but you could also see the talent within there. With the editors, you start usually as an assistant editor, or they do have apprentice editors. Not here, but in LA, they do apprentice editors, which are part of the union, which is sort of somebody where you can learn the craft without actually being required to know the technical side of things, which an assistant editor definitely needs. So it gives you that opportunity to learn the technical while also shadowing editors to understand the creative side of things. So that's kind of how they try to get you in there. And then you start as an assistant, which is where you do more technical things with some of the creative side. And then as an assistant, that gives you the ability to show the producers, directors, that you do understand the creative side of things. You can do small bits of a show or a 20-second little bit or even a couple-minute bit. And that shows that you can do it on your own. And then from there, you can get hired as an editor.
How is being in the union and being a union member and exposed to this type of quality? How does it help you develop your craft? Is it just being around people with experience? Is it the environment? I mean, what is it about union membership that helps people fine tune their skills?
I mean,
Well, through IATSE, we have a whole training trust fund. So every time you work on a union film, the producers pay in a very small percentage into our training trust. So we're constantly bringing classes and workshops. And we try and make them free to our members as much as possible, or minimal costs, So there's constant training. And then we also, really try and foster sort of a brother and sisterhood environment where we are mentoring each other and checking in on each other and bringing each other up as a whole. We all take an oath when we join IATSE that we will give preferential treatment to other union members when we're hiring, because that's what the brotherhood and the sisterhood of unionship means.
Yeah, it's somewhat similar for the performer side as well too. We have most of the locals and nationally we have conservatory programs that are essentially ways that members and non-members as well can develop and continue to work on their craft. The acting side is of course so I guess subjective. You know talent when you see it, but it's talent. You can do a lot of training. Some people have the ones who are successful have a combination of talent and training. Some people are just natural born actors and just So there's really it's a much more difficult thing to quantify. But we do offer the conservatory programs both nationally and locally. The SAG-AFTRA Foundation, which is an organization, nonprofit, separate from the union, also provides a lot of training and mentorship, job skills type programming. And then a lot of it is just, of course, just getting on set and working. And we've, over the last number of years, particularly since the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists merged in 2012, we've developed some very, very low cost contracts that allow new emerging independent filmmakers to work with union performers and put them side by side with non-union performers in a way that is either very low cost in terms of compensation or in some cases no cost whatsoever to actually use our members. So a lot of actors teach acting. So as a non-union performer, one of the best ways to develop your own craft is to work with people who teach, and the best way to learn how to act on, and particularly in front of a camera or behind a microphone, is to work directly with people who have that kind of experience. So that's one of the other things that we offer.
So yeah, I'll tell you, in 600, being a national organization, we have national training programs, and it's a traveling program. So for
Does
each
it
class,
travel or do the people travel?
No, we travel. The trainers travel, and so we'll usually go to a metropolitan like a Seattle or a San Francisco, and then our members can come travel from out of the area. If they're an hour or 2 hours away, they can travel in. We actually house them in a hotel room, and we train them in their craft. So a camera operator can come and get camera operator training. A camera assistant can get camera assistant training, and that is a year-round program that we travel with. The other thing we've done in 600 is we've created a mentorship program. And so the more experienced members sign up, and usually you get between 3 and 5 members to mentor, and we try to do that.
And because you're kind of in the business of working yourself out of a job, which, coming out of construction, I understand that. So, when you're trying to make a living, so how are the rates decided for in contracts, for a discipline, for a geographic area? How does that all get sorted out so that people have some comfort of knowledge that if I'm going to go do this thing for the next 3 months, I'm going to be able to pay my bills, put food on the table, that kind of thing? How's that all get figured out?
Most rates are determined by the individual unions, and they're generally based on the budget of the project. It's generally, okay, your budget is, like for IATSE, if you're over 5 million, you're a tier 1. If you go to 8 million, you're a tier 2. If you go to 10 million, you're a tier 3, and the rates go up commensurate. So there's tiers within that. We're in an environment right now where everything is sub 1 million. That puts us into kind of an ultra low budget arena, which then is the wild, wild west. As long as you're paying minimum wage.
Right, we call that tier 0. In
Tier 0, it's tier 0, or they call
it actually is. It's
yeah,
called tier 0.
Ultra low budget,
Yeah.
extreme low budget.
People are obviously doing it for the passion. They're trying to have an outlet for what they're.
It's a combination of the passion and people, they want to work, and then it's more than unemployment. It's more than 0, and it at least pays some of the bills. And then primarily, a lot of the folks do it because they get their pension and health hours. And
So how does that's because a lot of people want the security of a union membership for the benefit part of it. I mean, the compensation. Then you have health care, the training and continuing education component, and healthcare and pensions are a big deal. And I don't know anybody under 40 that thinks they're going to get Social Security when they retire, right? And the age keeps rising. So as far as enticing folks or making a pitch for their membership, how does the benefit structure work within the industry?
For DGA, it's extremely good healthcare benefits and a pension benefit, but you have to earn $38,000 a year to qualify for their, and then it's free healthcare if you earn that much. In Spokane, Washington, to work here as a DGA member and make 38, pretty tough. You kind of have to go out of town.
For 700, for editors, it's based on hours. So I think they just changed it, but for me, it's 400 hours for every 6 months. So if I work 400 hours for every 6 months, then the healthcare is free. And it also adds to the pension. And after 5 years being vested, you start to gain pension so that when you retire, you get a monthly stipend. I think now it's 600 hours, but that's not terrible to
That's
do
in a year?
6 months.
6 months.
For every
6,
6 months,
okay.
yeah. So and you can do it, the way it's set up it's set up by quarterly and then by half a year. And that allows you to do one project over the course of maybe 3 months that can actually get you an entire year's worth if you work, because it's kind of feast or famine, because you'll be working 60-hour weeks for a long period of time and then you'll have nothing. And that does allow you to do that. So for me, being on Z Nation, I could work that 4, 5, 6 month period and be able to get healthcare for an entire year easily.
Easily.
Yeah.
And that's the whole reason and push for a series. If you can get a series to shoot in Spokane, you get something that's going to be here for 4 or 5 months. Everybody works, they get their hours, they can bank those hours, they can carry over the next year.
Right.
Some
Like he said-
DGA doesn't,
Yeah,
but
we bank up to, I think we can bank up to 350. So you have to at least work 50 hours in a 6 month period to get your health care. But I do know for editors, that is one of the main reasons people choose, because our union doesn't require you to work union jobs. We can work non-union or union. But I know most of the editors I know will always choose a union job primarily because that's just a great benefit. Yeah.
You don't get benefits from the non-union.
Yeah,
job.
no, you
Right.
get nothing from the non-union. They let you do it, but again, they don't have to because anybody will choose a union job because of that.
And,
you know,
and DGA will crack down on you if you do a non-union job. You can't.
Well, and
You
that's
can't.
and that's kind of part of a little bit of the union culture too, right? And so I'm trying to imagine a production series or something that doesn't have some union affiliation, and I'm struggling with it, but it's not my business. So what would be like a typical, like the union represented versus a non-union job? I'm not sure what that looks like in your business.
Well, it used to, I mean, Northwest in the early days did everything non-union, except potentially if a director came to town, he was DGA, you'd have some DGA members, but everything, there was no IATSE, there was no Teamsters, no nothing, it was all non-union. And then as it went to more union jobs, and frankly, as Washington Filmworks came on board, and there's a requirement, and there, if you want incentive money, you have to provide health care, the easiest way is to go union. And knowing, becoming a DGA member and knowing how important the healthcare component and the pension and health component is, it's like, well, that makes it easier, especially in these low budget jobs, to go to Peter and say, look, you're not going to get your rate, you're not going to get the money you want, but you're going to get the pension and health hours. He goes, all right, it's
Right.
better than a sharp stick in the eye.
Absolutely.
But we did I did a non-union job. We did non-SAG, non-IATSE, non-team. We totally 100% non-union, and we got film work. We got incentive money, and it was a total pain in the butt to provide the health care. It was complicated.
that requirement?
Yeah, it was. We did it, but it was a lot of paperwork and a lot of effort to make that happen. And going back to sort of the earlier thing that we were talking about, just in terms of training and qualifications, and what makes the advantage of 600 and 700 is, again, on the management side, or on choosing to hire people. I can look at Peter's reel and go, oh yeah, he can shoot. Okay, that's good. I can look at your reel and go, Tim can't shoot. I'm gonna hire Peter.
You're outing me in front of everybody right now.
I can look at Travis's reel and go, okay, he can edit. It's pretty tough to look at something and say, oh, that's a really good set decorator. They really, that's just tougher to do. Same kind of SAG, you can look at a reel from an actor or do an audition and go, oh, great actor. But just because you're a member of any of these unions doesn't mean you're good at what you do.
So in that sense, and because we all just have our own experience to reference, coming out of the construction trades, there's some rivalry between, the iron workers and the carpenters, or the cement masons and the brick masons, or between, and so, but when you're on the job, you've got a shared interest in getting things done, getting them done well. How does that dynamic work when? And there would be other unions probably also involved in a project as far as coordinating and helping each other out on a set, for example.
Well, it's a collaborative art form. We all work together. We're all working towards the same goal, which is to put together the best possible project, whether it's a commercial, a film, a television series. But these are all very clearly defined job descriptions that each one of the unions have jurisdiction over. So there's, there are established protocols. The bottom line is that these people and our people are all there to do what they're there to do, and you are there to do that job, and you're not there to do somebody else's job, and we would actively discourage you from even attempting to do that, because you're impinging on, you're interfering with their work. A lot of times actors particularly, they're curious, they want to see what's going on, that's understandable. But you don't stand behind the DP while the DP is working. You don't ask the director a lot of questions while they're working with some other department or something like that. You have to, and this is it's a skill, it's something that you have to learn as part of the process of doing your job, is who to talk to, who not to talk to, who to interact with on the production side, either production staff or on the crew side. There's a hierarchy, and so you better learn very quickly who those people are, and then there's a protocol. That person, if it's a second assistant director or a production assistant, you go to them if you have a question or an issue, they go to their head, their department head, the department head goes to, so that it goes up the chain, but that chain is very well defined and very well established. And it would be considered, I think, probably, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but at least on our side, it would be considered a very serious breach of protocol to jump that line.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Set etiquette's a big deal in our union, and we've
What's
got
that, Rebecca? I'm sorry.
set etiquette
Okay.
is a pretty big deal for us when we get new members. That's something we have in our training manual. We want them to understand. Basically, I always say, films, just hurry up and wait. Like when it's your turn, everybody's looking at you and you need to get your job done. But when it's not your turn, back off and let someone else do their job. I mean, that's the most basic set rule, I think, that keeps us working collaboratively and cohesively, is not getting in each other's way. Like, I know one of the big things for 488 is we don't drive trucks. There's a Teamsters union, and actually Spokane has its own union drivers. We don't get in their way, and they don't, try and do makeup.
Right.
That could be a disaster.
Yeah,
It
I
could.
think the hardest thing though is when if you were raised, like probably most of us, your general inclination is if somebody's struggling with a big case or lifting a big box or moving a couch, oh, let me help, let me jump in and help.
Right.
And you can't. You shouldn't.
Right.
And I guess
Right.
I guess if the people carrying the case are going, help me, then yeah, you do. But your general, early on in my career, a lot of time I'm grabbing cable or grabbing something. It's like, take your hands off. That's my stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of that's their job and that's what they're supposed to do. And
Right.
don't interfere with it. And it's also hey, if the higher ups see you carrying my stuff, they're thinking I'm not working.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And that said, I mean, we all rely heavily on each other too. So there's a camaraderie there that is necessary as well. I mean, for me, when I'm setting lights, I have electric department, grip department. I have an actor or sometimes a DGA member standing in so I can see the way the light's falling on the actor. So there's a lot going on, and makeup, hair, and wardrobe. I'm always looking for, is their hair out of place? Is their makeup going bad? I'm looking for, so we're always trying to support each other too. There is that division of labor, but there's also a shared goal.
yeah, 99% of the time, everybody wants the same thing,
Right.
a
Yeah.
good end product.
And that, I mean, that's one thing that I've seen consistently throughout projects is that mutual concern, mutual success, because I'm not going to be successful unless you and you and you and you are all doing your thing. So with the advances in technology, for example, analog to digital, I mean, I've got a motion picture camera right here, right? Not talking about the quality of the thing, but it's out there and it's much more available to people, so they're using it. How do all the advances in these platforms impact the union's ability to thrive in the industry? And you had talked about the zero tier, the very low budget, people are just doing it for how does that impact the union's ability to do their work and your ability to earn a living in the industry?
I think from our side of it, from the editors, what you see is, maybe 10 years ago, if you wanted to edit something at a professional level, you had to have an Avid system, and it was something that wasn't easy to get. It was a computer that you had to specially have for it, and now anybody can edit on their home computer for almost nothing. The only thing that really changed is it helped you get into it easier. But the thing about it is once you get good at it, chances are you're going to join the union. So what is the people who are the best at it are almost always in the union. And that's because what the union offers is it offers better things for better workers. So really good editors are more likely going to be in the union. Almost every great editor I've met has been a member of the union, and that's by choice. And so I think one of the things is it's easy for the union to exist in that sense because they know that it is not just a group of people to get good wages, but it's also a group of people who have pride in their workmanship and are the best of the best. And that's what you know. And there is a pride thing. Almost every union editor is proud to be a union editor. It is a mark of, oh, I'm a good editor because I'm in the union. And it sort of creates that dynamic. So it's easy, yes, for anybody to start editing, to use their home computer to edit. But once you get good, it's a good way, I think, to show that you've proven yourself is by being a union editor. Plus, you also know that the best projects are going to require union editors as well.
The technology shift has just made it more accessible to anybody. So, I mean, I remember when I was in college, like when film was still a thing, we were like saving up the ends of film reels from commercials or anywhere that would donate to us so you could splice that all together so you'd finally get enough that you could make a short film. And you had 14 people who were just chomping at the bit to be a part of it. But now you can shoot one on your phone on a weekend. So there's great things like the 50-hour slam here in Spokane, where you've got all these filmmakers getting experience in one way or another and flooding the market with people who feel like they can do this instead of it's, an expensive and more exclusive club, which in turn also, in the gig economy world, you've got a lot of people, with less experience who aren't, vetted through a union or mentored, who are kind of undercutting stuff. The commercial world's really taking a hit.
Can you tell about the quality of the content? Given you would have a very discerning eye about the difference, but for the consuming public, the quality of the content has that been impacted as a result of the technology and everybody kind of jumping in and thinking they're the next Cecil B. DeMille or something?
I have to say, absolutely. These things have basically have blown up the industry. Filmmaking now is much more democratized, and there are far few obstacles to anybody who wants to make a film. But the reality is that 90% of what you will see out there, regardless of when it was made or how it was made, the cream always rises to the top, and you can tell the difference between an exceptional quality product and one that's pretty okay, what we like to call just good enough. But what the other thing that has happened is that this has actually lowered the cost of entry for people who want to make creative media content. And so it is possible now, and we have seen actually some pretty sterling examples of people who have made exceptional quality product using just a phone. Tangerine, I think, was a movie that came out a couple of years ago, which was sort of like the first one that really kind of was a breakout film that was all shot on an iPhone. Everything was done on an iPhone. But the reality is that most of what is being made isn't going to reach a very high bar of quality, for want of a better word. And while the public maybe doesn't necessarily pay that much attention to the content, it really does show in terms of the difference of the quality of the product. And everyone wants to be associated with the best quality product that they want. And I think that if you are a professional, whether that means that you are a union member, whether it means that you earn a living from doing what you're doing, or whether it is simply an attitude that you want to make the best possible quality product that you possibly can, given the resources that you have available to you, I think that's what separates you out from those who are hobbyists. I hesitate to use the word dilettante, but you know the people that I'm talking about. They're like, oh, I had this great idea. I'm going to make a movie, and they have absolutely no clue as to how to go about doing it. But this sort of lets them get enough something that they can look at, and they go, oh, look, that turned out pretty well. Whereas somebody with, as you say, a more discerning eye would look at that and say, oh.
I've got to ask the question for myself and on behalf of anybody else here that doesn't know what dilettante means.
A dabbler.
Oh, okay.
A hobbyist, for want of a better.
And so basically, it's kind of lowered the price of admission to get into the industry as far as technology goes. So given that dynamic and just what you've all explained about the industry and how it's evolved, why would it be important to Why is it important to get those industry standards into these kind of indie projects or and is it necessary to do it, and will people just sink or swim based on the quality of their product? And what can the unions do to elevate the quality of that or insert these industry standards in a way that kind of maintains the integrity of the project and the industry?
Well, one thing I know for sure is filmmakers who aren't used to making movies don't always know what it takes. And so that's one thing that you'll see, and it's not just in editorial, but it's in all sides, is they think that you can just show up with 3 people and get what you need. And even if you you have the right people or the right amount of people, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody knows how long something's going to take. It's one of the stark things when you're first on a film set is you're sitting around going, why is this taking so long? Why is this taking an hour to set up this single shot? But after you're in it more, you start to learn that there are reasons that it takes that long. It takes a lot of time to get the light right, and that's what Peter does. Is he'll spend an hour getting the light where the light needs to be, the camera where the camera needs to be, and people coming to it fresh don't always realize what it takes to get things to look the way they want it to look. And it's the same with editorial. I've seen people who come with, they even finish the movie and then they get it to an editor and they expect something back in a week without realizing that, for, 40 minutes of content or an hour and a half of content, you're looking at, maybe 10 weeks worth of work. And they just don't realize what it takes in terms to do that. So I think that's one of those little bits that's missing from people who don't understand and people who are just coming in.
Would you say that it's obvious about the content of the material that comes out, that's the case? Nobody's going to accidentally be successful, right? I mean, so...
Well, there's successful accidents all over the place.
Chances are small. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think there's a lot of unfinished films out there.
What we do, our end product is very subjective. And what you like and what I like is completely different. So what resonates with an audience, to me, that's the secret sauce of it. You don't know, you can't say, well, if I put ketchup and Worcestershire sauce and some brown sugar and some peppers, blah, blah, I'm gonna make this great barbecue sauce. Because Peter may hate that barbecue sauce. You don't know at the end of the day until that movie's done, or the TV show's done and it gets to an audience, you don't really know for sure how it's gonna resonate. So open waters, that's got to be a happy accident. Go out and spend $40,000 and 10 weekends and make a movie bobbing in the water and make $500 million.
Blair Witch.
I mean, there's all kinds of happy. I mean, it's a shitty movie. Quality sucks. But it resonated with the audience. It made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to go back to the industry standards for 1 minute, because I think one of the other things that happens in this world of accessibility to being able to make films is we lose some of the safety issues and some of the laws you need to follow as filmmakers. And so, like, I do tons of independent, little free, no budget projects because I want to become a better filmmaker, and I like mentoring people to become better filmmakers. And we always have the best version of industry standards I can do on my sets. So the first time that those people walk onto a union set or a professional set, they're not intimidated by it. But also, there's a lot of stupid things people do because they see it in a movie and then they try and recreate that. And we need to hold ourselves to a high standard of safety so people aren't getting hurt doing something that's just for fun. Like, we're not saving lives, we shouldn't be taking them,
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, that's literally like my number one concern with any project is how safe are my members going to be on that set? Particularly because I also represent stunt performers, and this is a highly specialized, it's a highly dangerous form of work. People die doing this kind of work, and every time it happens, and even one time happening is one too many times as far as I'm concerned. It raises huge issues, and we've all read about these things in the paper, and even when everything is set up exactly right the way it's supposed to be, it still happens. Yeah. And so when I'm on a set, when I'm doing a set visit, regardless of how big or small the budget is, that's the number one thing that I'm looking out for. Because if the actors are not safe, and they're not secure in what their work, chances are it probably means the crew is equally unsafe. It means the production staff is equally unsafe. And that is just, when we're talking about industry standards, that has got to be the standard. Everybody has to walk away from that set at the end of the day and actually walk away from that set. That's just the bottom line.
What seems to be universal, I've been just trying to find the similarities that you could cut across labor unions, and I think you just hit on it, is it's always about safety. And I've seen sets, there's a lot of lighting that's 50 feet in the air. Somebody put it there, right? There's, railings are not, I mean, it's just about, like you say, everybody walks away at the end of the day in one piece. And that's something I've seen universally throughout unions, is about member safety, and it costs a little bit more. So if you're on the management side, they're always resisting, and that's why we have those standards, whether it's labor and industries coming in enforcing it, or union members on the set saying, I'm not doing that, or that needs to be done better. That seems to be a universal quality woven throughout all the crafts.
Yes, it's safety and I guess harassment, or how you're treated by your fellow
Right.
worker are the two things.
Or management.
Or management, yeah,
Right.
yeah, or management. But we try. I think most productions in Spokane, even the small ones, because it's infiltrated with us that have worked on Z Nation and other features and stuff in town. I think most behave in a way that says, if any one person on set says, I'm not feeling good about this, or I don't really like what's happening here, they have a voice.
Yeah.
And when we listen, may not 100% agree, but it gives an opportunity to stop, take a look at it and say, okay, what are we doing? Is this safe? Or how safe is it? Are we prepared to take the risk? Yes, no. We go on.
That even in the construction business, these are generally always guys. They're generally always younger, so they're not going to get old, sick, or pregnant, right? And so there is a little bit of that macho attitude about, oh, just do it. And even in that industry, it is, don't do that. The toughest guy out there will say, that's not okay. And I appreciate that, we're far enough away from disastrous industrial accidents and disastrous kind of calamities that happen out on a work site that were very common 100 years ago, or maybe even 50 years ago, that aren't anymore, but we haven't forgotten that it could happen again if we're not vigilant about keeping an eye on safety. So I'm kind of looking at Juan. We've been at this for a little while, and I'm not sure what the timeline is, but I got to ask this question, being as that you're in the film industry and I'm an amateur. Have you ever been starstruck by, you're involved in all of, with all these talented people? Many of them are very famous or have become famous before your eyes.
My struck story is I had an opportunity 20 years ago to go to Cannes, the Cannes Film Festival, and I'm walking down the main drag of I can't remember what it's called, the Ponce de Leon or whatever it is, walking down this, and this crowd is coming towards me, and there's these big guys in suits with glasses on, like Secret Service, and they kind of swarm around me, and all of a sudden I'm kind of doing a spin, and there's Robin Williams. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
hi, Robin. And he said hi, and I got spun out of the group, and that was it. Just like my brush with greatness.
Wow.
That was my encounter. So other than that, no.
It's a concern. I remember Christian Slater, when the first time he came up here to do a film, I was the on-set costumer, and I had a collection of Christian Slater films when I was younger, and my boss knew about that, and she turns to me and she says, Rebecca, are you gonna be able to handle this? And I was like, I'm a professional, don't you dare! And at the end of the film, I'd been on set with Christian, and we had a great time. It was wonderful. At the end, I said, I am a huge fan. Can we just have a picture together? I just adore you, and I may have a collection of you at home. And he just turned to me and said, Rebecca, really? Really? So all right. He was flattered, yeah. But yeah, you gotta hold it in.
Well, you hung out with Clint, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the business, and my first time on set, I was 2 weeks old. It was Clint Eastwood set, and so I grew up. My dad did 32 Clint Eastwood movies, so there's not much that I've been starstruck. I think, yeah.
As you were around.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're all people. They put their pants on one leg at a time, you know.
I remember seeing this. It was actually a radio interview with the Kevin Mitchell, who was an outfielder when Ken Griffey Jr. Was coming into it, and they asked him what he thought about why he was such an early phenomenon as far as his talent. And there was the two outfielders, the left fielder and the right fielder, were in this interview, and he just said he grew up in ballparks. He grew up playing catch with all-stars because of his dad. He was not intimidated about getting into that position, and when he got to the big time, he had seen it before from a different angle, but he wasn't intimidated. The other outfielder's uncle was a football player, and he was a football and baseball player, the right fielder, and he went to his uncle for advice about, how should I pursue this, because his uncle had been a professional football player in the NFL, and his uncle told him, play baseball. You got a longer career, you get hurt less, and they got a better union. So I think I'm going to just look to Juan for a little direction here. I want to thank you for your insight. I think it's something I learned a lot here. I haven't been in this business for a long, long time, but certainly don't see all the angles and wasn't even aware of how sophisticated in this industry the union involvement, and superficially, but now with a lot greater knowledge. I want to thank you for my own little edification
We
here.
should do one of these for the legislature.
Yeah.
We need to up that incentive. So-
Well, yeah, we
so
could
let's-
maybe
let's-
get a
let's
little higher quality.
Yeah.
We're going to open it up to you guys for any questions you might have for the panel.
One thing I want to give everyone first is either on iOS or on Android app, Local 600 has taken it upon themselves to create a safety app for the industry, and it's free to anybody, whether you're union, non-union. It has all of the safety bulletins. So whether it's it's working with animals, firearms, heat and cold, infants, children, whatever it is, there's a safety bulletin that gives you guidelines, and I think that's useful whether you're on a small film, an indie, a project, passion project. Just go. It's called ICG, like International Cinematographers Guild, ICG Safety, and it's free, and it has all the safety you need.
It's nice to have technically skilled people in your industry to put that together, right?
Yeah.
So any questions?
How do you go about convincing people with money?
Say it again so you can be on film.
So how do you go about convincing the people with the money that you're worth it and they should spend their money on you guys?
Individually or to go?
For the union, on the quality that the union brings.
Well, yeah, the challenge, which sometimes it's easy to forget or to ignore, is that many times as a production supervisor or a UPM or a producer, I'm dealing with an investor, or the source of money is limited. It is, this is how much money I'm going to give you to make this movie. Then it becomes, how do I spend it? So those choices quickly become, well, you probably are going to go SAG, because truly, if you're going to get a name of any sort, if you're going to have an actor in there that's got a name, you're going to be SAG. The director, if they're DGA, you have to go DGA. Everything's DGA. If you choose a non-DGA director, then you can, and that becomes typically a decision made by a combination of the investors, the producing team, and sometimes even the cast, the actor. If you've got a bigger name actor involved, they'll say, well, I can't take a first-time director. I have to have my guy over here, and he's DGA, or she's DGA. So that sometimes is dictated for you. And then from there it becomes, if I want Peter to be my DP and be the cinematographer, well, he's IATSE, so boom, you're going IATSE. And those decisions, to a certain extent, get made for you based on the individual you're choosing.
And I think that the other thing in there that I've seen is a lot of times people with money learn that sometimes if they hire somebody non-union, you're not necessarily going to get somebody who has done it before. And so a lot of times they make that mistake. And that's a mistake that doesn't often get made when you hire a union person. Like in editorial, you can hire somebody to cut your film, but like I said before, a lot of times people don't understand what it takes, so they'll offer somebody a small amount of money for a small amount of time, and then when that person's time's done, the product won't be up to par, but they don't want to offer more money and that person will just walk. And I think that happens a decent amount on smaller projects. I've heard a lot of people talk about that, especially from the editorial side, that they didn't have enough money for editorial and instead ended up with a broken product and just had to find that money. So I think a lot of times producers learn from mistakes in terms of hiring people that can get it done, and those people are more likely to be union.
And film incentives have really changed the industry a lot. Like Washington's film incentive requires that you pay benefits, and like it was discussed earlier, it's really difficult to do if you don't go through a union that already has that structure.
And Rebecca, there's also, isn't there, besides the health benefits, isn't there a Washington State residency kind of percentage component? What is that?
You have to have 75% of your crew has to be from Washington. If you can achieve 85%, you can hire out of state and you'll get 15% on that out of state hire. If you're at 85%. Yeah. But 75% of your crew has to be Washington resident. And the other hard part, or it's not hard, it's just the way it is. The only 3 documents that prove you're a Washington resident is a driver's license that's at least 6 months old, a voter registration card that's at least 6 months old, or 6 months of utility bills at a Washington address. You could own 1,000 acres in Washington. You could own 15 businesses. You could own the world. If you don't have one of those 3, you're not a Washington resident in Filmworks eyes.
Ours is an incredibly responsible incentive.
We like to, make sure we get our money's worth. Right?
Any other questions from the audience?
Oh.
We'll just pass it over to him once you're...
Okay, sounds good. In order to correctly utilize pyrotechnics, how many safety standards do you have to jump through in order to from the minimum to the highest scale that you're aware of? How many safety standards do you have to go through for the union?
You probably know most.
Well, I guess I don't know specifically,
It's a
but
hard
you have to
question.
be you have to be licensed by the state of Washington as a pyrotechnic technician. I guess I don't know what the right term is, but it's a licensed. Like when we do explosions, and we've done them on Z Nation, our practical effects, our special effects team, currently none of them had a license, so we'd have to hire a guy. And they're generally people who have the business of doing fireworks, or maybe they're demolition explosives or that kind of thing. So we'd hire this guy Dale, and Dale would come on set for the day, and he was the license, and pay him for his license to make sure everything was safe. We're doing, the reality is at our budget levels, and even at the $2 to $5 million level, it's more and more, how would you say it, air cannons and maybe a flame bar, and then augmented with visual effects done in post. I mean, if you give the visual effects artist some elements, some pieces and parts that they can build on, the explosion's much easier to do in post.
And when you're working with a union crew, we have a shop steward on set who kind of keeps an eye out for safety and things, and they're gonna make sure there's someone with a license there, or our crew's not gonna work. So there's a union we stand in solidarity.
But from the DGA standpoint, unless you are completely an idiot and have not paid attention to anything as a first AD on set, I'm not going to let anything happen safety-wise, because first ADs have gone to jail for a person getting killed on set.
First AD is ultimately responsible
so
for the...
You take a hard line on that stuff. And likewise, if you say, no, this is safe, we're going to do it, you're taking the responsibility, and you better be sure it is safe.
Yeah. And then from our side of things, we would have, that would probably fall under at least the general purview from our perspective of a stunt coordinator, who is ultimately responsible for managing and supervising any of the stunt works. So pyro would be included in that to the extent that actors are involved in the scene, whether they're in close proximity to the effect or in the situation of like explosive squibs and things like that that are actually being placed on the body. So they're like the, for our members, the ultimate safety officer, but they're going to work really in close coordination with all of these other departments that are involved in that particular effect to make sure that everything is done safely and correctly, and that we've minimized and managed the risk to the absolute ultimate extent that we possibly can. Because even, as I said before, when you manage everything correctly, there's still always that small possibility of something going wrong. And the more of that you can try to mitigate, before somebody pulls the trigger or presses the button, then the better off everybody's going to be.
I mean, a good example on Z Nation this year, we did a full body burn, and the guy being burned is a stunt performer. So he's a SAG member, a stunt performer. The stunt coordinator is a SAG member. As the UPM, I was on set as the first AD, obviously on set, and we walked through as the small group. Okay, this is what we're going to do. These are the commands for lighting him on fire. This is what's going to happen if he has a signal that I'm getting burned, this is hot, this is who comes in and puts him out. We instruct the crew, even if this goes south and it's bad, stay back. If we had a pickup truck there ready to, we knew our route to the hospital, you plan everything out. You have to look at worst case scenario, plan for it, and then hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
IATSE 488 also covers set medics.
I have like a two-part question. So as a production company, we find a lot of our own work. So I guess one of my questions is, what's the process for a production company, smaller production company like us that's growing, to work with union crews? And two, you mentioned the benefit of not having to deal with health insurance, which is amazing. Is there any other benefits of working with union crews?
Well, you have to pay for the health insurance. If you, as the production company, if you sign a signatory deal with 488, and you're going to hire a union crew, right now it costs you $108 per day per crew member that goes to their pension and health fund. So your costs go up. You have to budget that in and factor that in. What you get for that is, a more experienced crew, a crew that's worked together more often, a crew that understands sets protocol, safety, all the issues that go on set, and here in Spokane, a pretty cohesive group of people that have a lot of experience together and know individual strengths and weaknesses, and can support each other, augment each other, can call each other out if you need to, but they're a family, and that's the benefit of it right now.
And I think
but
too that you when you go through the union, everything's standardized, so you don't have to negotiate with each member, what they want. I mean, the union will help you figure out what the rate is, and that'll you can just go with that, and you'll have the.
It's established. I mean, you have your keys, your seconds, your thirds. You
right.
do have your subject to negotiations,
right?
And you still have to negotiate with every individual because they all want a kit rental, a box rental. They want mileage, they want gas, they want this, they want that. So to say you don't have to negotiate with them, that's a false. You have to every
right. But if it's non-union, you have to negotiate every single rate.
You come in with a template.
Yeah.
With a union contract. Every person on your crew has the opportunity to come and ask for more, but at least you have a standard to start from.
Yeah, the rate card, the rates are just, those are the minimum rates you have to pay.
Right.
Anybody can come in and ask for more.
But not everyone does. I'm not speaking for myself, of course.
Okay.
Well,
And you also have a business, sorry.
No, go ahead.
You also have a business agent who will work with you, who's working on that contract, who's holding your hand through all of that. If
Right.
you have, if there are, issues with crew members or staffing or any of that, you've got someone who's there by your side, who's working with you to make that production happen. Because at the end of the day, every union wants their members working.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that, you have a no strike clause. So if there's a dispute, you actually work while you're resolving the dispute. Yeah. So you continue
You
working
can't get shut
until
down.
the business agent and yourself, if you're the production, you resolve the dispute. The work continues until you resolve or not resolve.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I actually do for SAG-AFTRA is act as a business rep. So, for a lot of productions, I would be your local point of contact, even if you're working off of a national contract. But the other thing that I was going to say, we mentioned minimum standard or minimum compensation. That's the same with all of our contracts. We set the minimum levels. Anybody else is free to negotiate, or usually their agent if they have one. But for somebody in a situation like you, where you're actually creating a business, or you have a business that is on the production side of things, one of the things that contracts do for you in general, regardless of which guild or union that you have that contract with, is a contract is a contract. It's a legal document. Both sides agree to abide by certain terms and conditions that are in this contract, and so even though there may be questions about maybe nuance and maybe occasionally interpretation, everybody knows what their expectations are on both sides, and so that keeps everything clear. It keeps it professional. It keeps it businesslike. And as we know in this industry, unless you're working literally on the no budget end of things, time is money. So the advantage of working with union crews and union performers is that you don't have to spend a lot of time teaching people how to do their job. They come in and know how to do their job ahead of time, or they should know how to do their job ahead of time, which in the long run, you're going to pay up front for that cost, for that experience and that expertise, but in the long run, it's going to be a benefit to you because it means your production, your shoot is going to go that much more quickly, that much more smoothly, and you're going to save a huge amount of time because you're not wasting time and therefore money on those productions.
I've noticed that with actors.
Yeah, well, yeah, and there's no guarantee. I mean, somebody mentioned here earlier that just because you have a union card in your pocket is no guarantee of ability or talent, and particularly on the actor side. I live and work in Seattle. I know hundreds of incredibly talented actors who are not union members. Most of them are theater actors, though, and putting a theater actor on a film set, there's a different skill set involved there, and if they don't have the training or they don't have the practical experience, somebody can come in and do a phenomenal audition, but when you put them in front of a camera, sometimes it can be difficult for you to get what they want. Doesn't mean they're a bad actor, it just means they maybe should stick with theater.
They're vaudeville.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to add one thing to that. I also do visual effects, and so I own a visual effects company with another gentleman. And one thing that's different about that than the union work is we end up redoing other people's work a lot, which is something that happens, I think, less often when you work with union workers. And there are cases sometimes where we even hire people to do work, and it's just hard to tell because there is no union for visual effects. So you sometimes are gonna, it's more of a crapshoot, I think. So I see a lot with editorial, you hardly ever see union editors having their work redone by other union editors. It does happen, but that is stuff that usually could be mitigated at the beginning by understanding where it is that they're coming from. Usually they're all qualified, but with visual effects, I've made a lot of money fixing other people's visual effects. And it's, they'll spend a ton of money on somebody else, and then they'll come again and spend a ton of money with us. And if they'd have just spent more in the beginning, they would have saved money. So a lot of times that's what you have to look at when you want to hire somebody. You have to think, what is my overall cost going to be if the people that I want to hire that I'm not sure about don't work out versus the people who are more likely to be good. Even though that's going to cost more, in the end, will it maybe cost less? So that's one thing to think about.
Something else I would just caution you to look into if you've never done a union project and you're looking into it. A lot of times you'll be required to have a bond to cover a certain amount of money to make sure that all those union wages get covered. So just look into that.
Feels like an upfront cost.
Every one of them you'll have to post either a deposit with the union or some kind of upfront money because they've gotten burned so many times of a particularly low budget project come in, say I'm going to hire Peter for 3 weeks and 600, and he works for 2.5 and we shut down and he doesn't get paid. So 600 now says, okay, if you want Peter for 3 weeks, you gotta post an equivalent amount of money that's his pay and his pension and health money, and they hold it. And the challenges from the producing side is sometimes, I mean, I've got money at SAG that's been there for 2 years and I can't get it back. They're sitting on it. Chris,
That's above my
we'll have to
pay
talk
grade.
about this after. So, you know, that's the hard part, is you give them that money, we've fulfilled it, we've done everything, everything's done, you gotta get your money back. But it's, you know, if you're gonna go SAG, IATSE, DGA, WGA, you're gonna go the union route because you want those specific people that are members of that. Yeah, you get higher quality, but it costs you.
I just remember this comment an old guy told me that I worked with a long time ago. Said something to the effect of the sweetness of a low cost is long forgotten after the bitterness. Yes. Poor
Yeah.
outcome.
Yeah.
Something to that
Yeah.
effect.
We have a lot of passionate people in Spokane about filmmaking. What advice would you give those people who are not union members about joining the club, or, you know, getting into the position to be able to work? We do have film that comes through Spokane, small amounts of projects after Z Nation, and it seems that we're a family, and we're a close-knit family. How do people get into that family?
So I just want to say, whenever you work a paid job, save your pay stubs. So when you come to me and say, I've worked for 30 days in the last 12 months as a boom operator, and I want to be in the union, I need to see proof that you've done that. So save your paperwork, save all your paperwork. Every union, DGA is especially strict.
Deal memos, call sheets, crew
Yeah.
lists, pay stubs, time sheets, save it all.
Everything.
But also, I mean, IATSE is theater as well.
Right.
So theater counts as well. So days on theater, civic theater, it all counts as well.
But it has to be paid.
Has to be
It
paid.
has to be paid.
That's what we
It's
can
a-
guarantee as a union. You've got someone who's worked at least 30 days paid in that craft you're hiring them for.
And unfortunately, in the current climate, with these smaller, you know, under $1 million low budget projects, there's fewer positions. It's already kind of tough to get. There's only a few ports of entry. There's really, as a production assistant, or generally in the art department as a set dresser. Those are the two kind of primary ways into 488. I mean, unless you have a specific skill, like right now, a sound mixer or a boom op would be great to have more options. We're a little low on those in town. But there's only a couple ways in, and with these smaller budget films and a pretty healthy number of union members already in town, it's even going to be tougher. And
Yeah.
I
But
hate to be the
commercial
bearer
work,
of bad news,
yeah.
but
I mean, commercial work counts.
Yeah.
As far as getting your days into the union.
yeah.
Being a union member does not guarantee you a job. Just because you're a member of the union and there's a union project in town doesn't mean I'm going to be working.
Right.
You know, I have to maintain a good relationship with the producers who are
Right.
going to hire me. I have to show up every day. I have to prove myself and get the jobs
Right.
too.
None of our unions are job placement unions.
Right.
Right.
And there are good quality crew members that will not work on various shows because there's not enough positions.
Yeah, as a sound mixer that's worked both union and non-union jobs, I actually get most of my work when it comes to town, even on national TV jobs, as non-union. And so as a sound mixer, like you're saying, with not many of us in the union, we can't really afford it because most of the people that come here to film, sound is the first place it seems like they've cut their costs. My sweet spot, as you guys know, have been working in the very low end of the industry. I would like to be in the higher end, but here locally, I can't afford to do it. What would you suggest that we as the sound mixers here locally do to, I don't know, try to encourage more money to be spent on us on sets, especially national TV sets that I've worked on?
Yeah, again, it comes down to, you know, on the current projects I'm working on, there is a very, very specific amount of money available. So it's, how do you spread it out? And generally, it starts kind of at the above the line stuff where, okay, these are the cast members we need, and this is where we're getting them from, and this is the SAG rates, and so that gobbles up a certain amount of money, and okay, the director is DGA, so that gobbles up a certain amount of money. We want to go IATSE, so you got $108 a day at least for every crewman. That gobbles up that money. You got to feed them, that gobbles up, and you start whittling it down, and you work the necessities. And you get down to sound and you go, okay, well, I've seen a lot of mixers that boom themselves, so one-man sound crew. Let's do it. Sucks, and it's not the right way to do it, but that's how it happens.
And I'm just going to throw out there, our film incentive is one of the smallest in the nation. We have $3.5 million, which sure ain't much. That's not going to bring in a bunch of $5 million movies, So we're going to attract smaller projects as long as we have a smaller film incentive. So get out there and fight for the film incentive.
I mean, my dream would be to have a sound department that's a mixer, a boom, and a utility. A three-person crew would be spectacular. Mm-hmm. But that also means then, set dressing is, a dresser, a lead, and four, or a decorator, a lead, and 4 dressers, and an on-set guy. So, in our current world, it doesn't happen that way.
Can we just trade some producers? Why are there always 10 producers and one boom guy or one sound guy?
Well, because the producer is probably the one out there that wrangled the money and got the creative going and got the project going and has been working on it for 3 years and got no pay.
Yeah, no, that's the one job I would never want to take on a film project as producer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim Ormsby, for being here as our representative. And I know you're the money guy. Like when we're working on the film incentive, you've come to us as filmmakers and said, show me the money, many times. And I appreciate you being here facilitating this board, this crew list here. It helps us who are trying to get in. For the people on the board, who are speaking, one of the things that we're trying to work on with Spokane Film Project is apprenticeship programs with the schools. What would you like to see in each individual, so Tim Ormsby can know and advocate for it? What are some of the classes you could see? Definitely I like doing sound and mixing. I like being right in there with the camera person and the director. You're right in there. But what are some apprenticeship programs you could see to improve the quality of the work that we're doing here in Spokane? Like you're saying, editors, we could use more editors, an editing program. A lot of people don't realize how important editing is to a good film or a good TV show, and acting. What would you like to see, the business aspect of it, the camera producing? What would you like to see, the business, cinematography, safety? What would you like to see in our schools to improve so we can get those Netflix and Prime Video filming, even if we don't have the film incentive, because the quality here, diversity, we're very inclusive here in Spokane. What can we do to improve our educational system here in Washington State? That's my question.
I would just like to say very quickly, it's over the last decade or so, there's been a lot of focus both at the secondary and post-secondary level in terms of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. There's been a push over the last couple of years to add one more alphabet letter to that, which is A for art. We are at the nexus of art and technology. Most of my members more on the art side, these folks more on the technology side, but it's that confluence of that. And so I think, when we're talking about educational opportunities, I think, as parents or, supporters of your school systems, the one thing that you can do is to emphasize that for our industry, those two things go hand in hand. You can have the highest technology, available, given the rapid rate of technological advancement, but if you don't have that artistic component there, that's all it is. It's just a tool that doesn't serve necessarily a useful purpose. I mean, that's exaggeration, obviously, but focus on on trying to get arts funding into your, because that encompasses all of this. I mean, it's not just acting, it's the filmmaking, it's the film editing, it's the film processing, it's the directing. All of the creative work that our members do falls into that one letter, even though there's a lot of crossover with the other letters. So I would say that's the most fundamental thing that you could do.
It's interesting. I work on, or I am on an advisory board for some of the local local schools film programs, and I agree 100% with what you're saying. But one thing I found fascinating is photography gets all of this money because it's technology, but film doesn't because it's an art. And so changing that narrative and that perception, anytime you're talking with a school board member, that's an important thing for our industry. We are, like Chris said, the nexus of technology and art, and they're equally important in this industry.
No, and one thing is nowadays, because of the phones and things like that, it is a lot easier for students to make films. And I know this from, I have a daughter who's in 7th grade, and they do a lot of projects. And what you can see is that she's more interested in film. So she will film things instead of do a PowerPoint. She'll have her friends over, and they will actually make projects. But that's not something that's ever encouraged in her school. The PowerPoint or the traditional things like that are encouraged. And I think encouraging students to use technology, or even to give them some form of technology to use for those that don't have phones that are capable of it, will allow them to do both the artistic side of things and the technical side of things, as well as, whatever the learning is that they're doing. So usually it's, a project for something else. It's a presentation for, history, or a presentation for social studies, but it allows them to utilize multiple things within that. And I think encouraging that would help. And it's what she said about making it more technical as well as the art, and incorporating all those things together, I think.
Yeah,
If I can-
basically agree with that concept of, I don't, if it's more money for a longer school day or a longer school year to give more time to allow individual students to pursue whatever they're passionate about, whether it's art or music or sport, whatever it might be. But still, fundamentally, I still think it comes down to STEM and maybe adding that element.
Right.
My biggest complaint is just, I want people with good work ethic, basic manners, basic communication skills, basic ability to, take instruction and complete the task and come back and say, now what? And there aren't a lot of them. There's fewer and fewer.
As an outsider, though, just kind of in the education system, whatever, and in the outside of after-school stuff, or like clubs, a film club or something that's extracurricular, the corporatization of education is very much like we're putting out widgets in K through 12. And then you get to, by virtue of being a young adult, get to experiment a little bit in higher ed. But until we get rid of this idea that you're going to pass this test, you're going to sit these hours, you're going to do these things, and unless and until you do that, you don't get this credential to go and do something. So the arts are always taking it in the chin in terms of funding, and I would say for all of the disciplines, and this is my experience, and it may not involve everything that we do is 95% science. It's like gravity and shit like that. So but the 5% that's art is not being appreciated. It probably, that performer, that person that person behind the camera with the eye, with the lighting skill. A lot of it's just electricity, but how does it create shadow? How does it illuminate the face? How does it reflect? All of that, that's science, but it's like they hit the sweet spot. And until we get away from the Washington Business Roundtable saying that we're all the same and that we're all going to have to conform to these standards in order to get a credential that allows us to go out and get gainfully employed, until we lose that, until we start appreciating the 5%, well, I don't think we're going to get there. And on the sound, the gentleman with the sound mixer, how do we do that? And in an industry, the strength of the workforce is only as strong as the weakest link. So if you can get somebody out there that's going to go do boom and mixer board and editing, or I don't know what sound mixers do. So, unless you do that, let's not forget, 175 years ago in England, Bob Cratchit today would have been CPA, but he was asking Scrooge for coal lumps, right? So there was not a very appreciated discipline at that time in that society during that time period until they banded together and said, hey, we're going to create this thing where we're going to certify that publicly traded companies have have the wherewithal to be successful and they're worth investing in. So I don't know how you do that in each one of those things, but
I invite you to come out to Mount Spokane High School to challenge your thought about what we're doing in schools right now. I think what you would notice is that not only are they winning state awards for their art, they're leading the state in not only digital photography and technology.
But I'm not worried about the successful schools, because they're going to do just fine. I'm worried about the ones that are defaulting to.
You might want to come out and once again challenge your thought and see the Marshallese. I won't name any names. I'll invite you to come out and challenge your thought, please. I invite you.
And what do you mean by challenge my thought?
I think you're off base. I think
okay.
if you came out to Mount Spokane, your light bulb would be a little more illuminated, and you would appreciate what's happening more.
Okay, and on an individual basis, I see that all the time. But in a large picture, when we're talking about the entire system of what we do, I feel comfortable in my position, but I'm not going to say that it happens everywhere. I'm just going to say that's my frustration with the system I see as a whole.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just add to that just real quickly, because my two stepsons graduated from Ballard High School, which has an incredible digital filmmaking program. Lawrence, the teacher there, is just incredible. But they still hold bake sales. They still get all of their money from volunteer donations. It doesn't come as part of the standard school. And this is the most well-funded school district in the state, and yet arts programs there exist as successful as they are. It's all based on the passion of the teachers and the passion of the students and the passion of the parents supporting those programs, because the school district is not supporting them financially in the way that they are technology programs in those schools.
All right, is there any other questions? All right, so what I'd like to do to kind of start wrapping this up, if we could start at that end of the table and end with Tim here. Maybe just one last bit of pearl of wisdom to leave this group with regarding your profession and your union.
Sure. I represent actors, stunt performers, dancers, singers, news broadcasters, anybody who appears in front of a camera or behind a microphone. These people are incredibly passionate about what they do, and they want to work, and they are willing to work. And as a union, we have provided opportunities from the lowest to the highest end of the spectrum when we're talking about the amount of money that you have to spend. So really, the bottom line for us is that money is not an object to you as a creative person. If you want to use our members, we have ways of making that happen, and I would encourage you to reach out to me personally as the local representative for the union members in this area, because if you've got a project and you want to use our folks, we've got a way to make that happen for you.
I guess what I could say is that I think within the Editors Guild, one of the great things that it does is it allows editors to meet and work with other amazing editors, and that's one of the things that I've gained from it, as well as allowing us to make enough that we don't have to have another job. When I was non-union as an assistant editor before becoming union, I had another job at the same time. So it was hard to make this a career. It was hard to find a way to do this full time. And then joining the union allowed me to meet other editors, which gave me really good contacts, which allowed me the opportunity to find other work as well. And then within that, the work paid enough that it's self-sustaining, so that I don't have to find secondary work.
I'll be the boring one for just a minute, because I think one of the things we are lacking with a lot of young people is teaching them the paperwork of the world. There are a lot of contracts. Every single time you work on a project, you're going to have a new deal memo. You should learn to read those. Teach other people to read those. Understand how to fill out a W-4 and what kind of exemptions you want on your taxes. I walk people through this all the time, and I'm happy to do it. because someone needs to teach it. But take a minute to educate yourselves, educate those in your sphere about the paperwork of the film industry.
Or just become friends with her and she'll do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, so International Cinematographers Guild has given me so much, my family. You know, and I think now in the current political world, we need labor more than ever. We need to build the middle class back. And as far as a standard, I think that IATSE and DGA, and I mean, we're kind of relics in America right now, and I think that we all need to support any union, all unions, and I'm thankful for that, that we support each other and that we can support our communities. At Local 600, we actually do outreach within our communities too. We go into the community, we do food drives, we do coat drives, we march in parades. You know, anything we can do, we get involved in the community. As far as industry standards, I really want to get back to one thing, that safety app. Please go and get the ICG Safety. Use it on any project, no matter how small. These are union standard bulletins. They run across SAG, DGA, IATSE. They are the standard for safety.
You're all here, so you're all passionate about this industry and this business and what you do. It's going to be cliche and corny, but you can't give up. You can't let the no's stop you. You got to keep going. You just got to keep, and don't be deterred, because you're going to get a lot more no's than you get yeses. If you choose as a production company to go union, it's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it, but be prepared for the cost, the deposits, and the paperwork, and give yourself plenty of time to get it all done, because that process of becoming a signatory, they check under the hood thoroughly, so they're going to want to see everything. Yeah, so it's every one of these unions is strong and important. I agree with Peter. We need that labor representation. It's got to be a balance, though. It's always got to be balanced, and I think from a management side, you know, there's always that battle. Unions, oh, you're horrible, you're horrible. Management, oh, you're horrible, you're horrible. Neither is. We're all looking for the same thing. We're all looking for a successful project. We all want to make a good movie or a good TV show,
Yep.
and we all want the same thing. We just got to figure out, and it works better when there's good, solid communication, trust, and integrity, and you get the job done.
I think this has been very insightful for me. Learning and from your specific experiences and how that really translates into a universal way to me about safety, for example. And I got into the concrete business. I was just hand to mouth. I mean, you know, I was a parent at 20 years old. It's not something I recommend, but it's what happened to me. Had 3 kids. You know, I had to go and make a living. So I was scrapping, doing whatever I could find, doing concrete work in Seattle. And I moved back home here where I grew up. I was gone for about 4 years. And when I came back, I got $3.50 an hour raise from what I was making when I was living in Seattle. I got health care for the first time. I got pension contributions for the first time ever. So I go to a lower cost of living area, increase my wages by over 1/3, and then I get these benefits that I had never had, paying hospital and doctor bills with cash. It was an eye-opener in terms of, but what I had not factored in prior to becoming a union member was we're all in this together. So instead of stepping over some less fortunate person on our way to being majorly successful, if you define your success as that person comes along with you on your journey to your destination, it changes the way you think about things. And I've always signed the back of a paycheck, but then, you know, recently got into this management role in the legislature where you have to bargain and be the management, where you got to be, you know, tight on the purse strings. And you can do that and be responsible. You have to honor the person across the table from you. You have to validate their role in this thing instead of hate you, you're the enemy. These are all necessary roles that have to be played. And if you have people of good faith in those positions doing those jobs, it is not Herculean. It's not, you're going to get to impasses, you're going to do things, but if you keep working on it, it is going to be resolved. And what I really like about the artistic component of this, and something I learned a long time ago, is if you follow your passion, you follow your bliss, you are going to get personal satisfaction, and that is way more valuable. As long as you can pay your bills, that's way more valuable than any amount of money you're going to get.
So if I could just get a round of applause for our host and our panel. Just to wrap up a couple things, I want to thank CMTV, Darian, and Deshaun. This is being recorded, and it will be on. For the people that worked. Yeah. This will be on the CMTV 14. We will announce on the Spokane Film page when it is. So if anybody who you knew who wanted to come who could make it can watch it then. Or if you want to double check your notes, that's the time to you could do that. We will have another panel in September, and that one's Producing 101. And we're going to have producers from film, music videos, commercials, industrials from in our area here, talking about that. So be aware, keep an eye out for that. And last but not least, Spokane Film Project just recently has become a nonprofit, and we're trying to raise some more money to create more panels like this and actually get some more hosts. And these folks all volunteered, but try to bring in some experts from other aspects, maybe VR stuff, things that you guys might be interested in seeing. And we at Spokane Film Project would like to know what those things would be like. But there is a small jar in the back on the way out. If you want to do a little donation, that'd be lovely. Otherwise, thank you very much and enjoy the weekend.